Back in 2008, when BMW and Mercedes reigned supreme in the V8 field, there was another competitor turned up from Japan. And I've got it with me here today. Lexus entered the chat, and this is no standard one. I want to introduce you to Rich, the guy that owns and has built this car, very, very soon. And we're going to have a wander around and full spec check. And we're going to go out in it too. So let's get stuck in. This is Rich. I've known Rich so long, back in the Honda days. So
saving you in your trailer, remember?
Yeah, I do. My trailer caught on fire coming back from Rockingham Drift days. So that was a long time ago. But you were initially one of the Honda boys as well.
Yep.
And we need to talk about this absolutely amazing car. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know this is the first time we're going to be filming on the big camera over there and the new DJI Osmo 3. So we're going to be switching between cameras. Hopefully it's not too intrusive and it will be good. So Rich, this beautiful machine, please tell me and our audience about it a little bit, because this is what we described as an under the radar car.
Yep,
so
pretty much.
Can I ask before you start, what made you go for one of these?
I found it on eBay, believe it or not. So I had a Lexus, I was into the VIP scene, had a GS 430 on air. Nice wheels, but I wanted something to take on track, to have fun with. Didn't trust the Lexus too, you know, I don't know, of that generation where a vehicle on air rides didn't really fill me with confidence going around the ring.
Right.
So decided to sell it, wanted to look at what was out there, wanted another V8, wanted something a bit more sporty. Literally put Lexus 5-litre V8 into eBay and an ISF popped up. And that was it. Started researching it, fell in love with them. Realised that, you know, very little maintenance, standard Lexus, very little problems. The odd thing that comes up here and there with all cars, but you know, a bulletproof 5-litre V8 that had been around for a while, quite proven, and a direct competitor to the C63 and the M3, which I also looked at the time. Yeah,
so that was what I was getting at in the start of the video. The big cars back then, obviously being European, lots of the European guys, myself included, look at the M3 as like the top of the tree.
Yeah.
The C63, I read online because I did a bit of research on these cars. The C63 seems to be this one's main competitor, like for like. That seems to be what a lot of the reviewers say. As an owner, I don't know if you'd say any different.
I haven't had a C63, to be totally honest. I'd say it's not as raw. I think this is a Jekyll and Hyde car. And
okay.
It's probably with the ISF, it was probably the reason why it didn't kind of do as well. I'd argue to say that the M3 and the C63 were straight out the box animals, whereas this will be, if you floor it, but you can put it into drive, put it into, you know, automatic and pull it around, and it feels like a Lexus.
Right.
And I think, unlike the sports sedans coming from Mercedes and BMW, they dedicated their cars to being animals, whereas yeah, this is a competitor in terms of speed, 0 to 60, but it just didn't feel the same out of factory, and that's probably, I'd say, why it didn't take off as well as it could have done.
Understandable.
They didn't go all in.
Understandable.
Lexus
Brilliant.
didn't go all in.
Rich, I want to go around the car, talk about the changes you've made, because you said like this car needed a few mods to be unleashed. But first off, we've got some mods that may not have affected the performance a little bit, but certainly affected the styling and how it looks, because it's a gnarly looking car, man. I think it looks so crazy. So let's start off with the bodywork. If I get info in here with the DJI camera, the people are going to be able to see all this carbon fibre. Now, is all of this off the shelf or is this custom? Like, yeah, is this just available if someone has one of these and wants to?
Yeah, it's available. There's an import. It's all Saban carbon. Being that there's 190 of these on UK roads that's left. Yeah, off the shelf parts are quite hard to find, but this is Saban front end, so Saban arches. Carbon bonnet and the carbon boot lid.
Yeah, we'll check the boot lid out in a moment, but the front end, yeah. It looks so crazy. I like the fact that there's still some body colour around some of the arches where it connects up. The front lip, what's that from?
Believe it or not, it's a Maxton lip kit.
I thought it would be.
Not my first port of call, but in the world of having Lexus parts, and people that will have a rare car will probably appreciate this. When I was looking for a lip kit that I could run day in, day out and inevitably stone chip and destroy, I wasn't looking at importing a Tom's kit from Japan. You know, we were looking at heavy prices.
Yeah.
Someone told me the ISF had a complete lip kit on Maxton design, and I thought, well, one, I don't believe that, but two, I'm going to go check it out anyway. And they do. The whole lip kit's from Maxton. I've already gone through 2 lips, so yeah, in terms of function, it's probably not my first port of call because it's everywhere now, but beggars can't be choosers with a car like this, you know.
I want to show you here, it really does add an extra dimension to the car. And obviously it does go all the way around. One thing I really like, I guess it's a standard thing on this car, is the headlights with the little running lights at the bottom. That's like a beautiful bit of design, I think.
So they're actually a modification. They are.
Oh, are they?
They're Lexus 2014 headlights.
Okay, sorry, did I say they were standard?
No, they are standard, but for a modification for this car. So it came with the first set of generation headlights that were crazy when I got them. So I went direct to Lexus and spent, well, you can imagine, a little bit on some brand new 2014 style headlights. So these cars never had DRLs. Right. So we spoke to a guy in London who was absolutely fantastic, walked me through it, and we wired into the loom of the vehicle MOT compliant headlights. Awesome. So the DRLs, 100% brightness during the day. As soon as you put your side lights or your dip beam, they go to 50%.
Oh, cool.
And it's all into the car, so you wouldn't even know when you open the bonnet. There's no way of telling that they're not actually Lexus. But I tried other brands, again aftermarket ones, but there was something about it. I thought I'm starting to turn the car into something a bit cheaper looking than what I really wanted it to stand out and be, and that's.
Well, I'm glad I noticed that then, because we could have.
But yeah, they stand out, but they are actually a modification in terms of a facelift.
That's so cool. And then before we move around any of the rest of the car, I want to show you guys these beautiful wheels. You've kept this in line with really the JDM theme. Yep. From your past as well. And what do we have here? We've got the N key. Yep. And what are these? If I'm reading it off the wheel here because I'm not too knowledgeable on this series of N key, but GTG01RR?
Yeah, GTC's 01RR.
GTC, okay.
Yeah, so I wanted a lightweight set of wheels, proven company. Had Weds before, Wed Sports, but I didn't really like the finish. They had to be 18s, had to be a square setup because that was one of the pitfalls of this car when it first came out. They put on a staggered setup and understeer. There were issues against cars that went on a square setup in returns to handling. It's transformed it. So I wanted to go along, carry on with the same line as what other people had gone with. So I went with a square setup, and I wanted Japanese lightweight wheels. There's something about it. I don't know. You just have to. They serve, their function over form and all that. I wanted something practical. I wanted something lightweight, but still not just put on the lightest possible wheels possible. Yeah. I wanted something where I want to take it on track. I wanted to push it. I wanted the proven weights. I wanted to see the specs, And if I was putting out a car that was a daily, then I would happily put on, copies and stuff like that. I've got,
And what size do we have in these?
They're 18 inch by 9.5 wide.
Cool. And what's the offset, do you know?
35.
35, yeah. And what tyres do we get wrapped up in here?
275, 35, 18s.
Nice.
Which we'll be changing next year to semi-slicks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I have trouble putting the power down now on the rears.
Right, okay.
With the changes that have been made, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to pop that bonnet open and we'll show the people? Right. Rich, we'll just pop the bonnet up on here, and you said, it's not as pretty under here as you're expecting, but I'm going to get in here with the DJI. That is a big old slab of carbon right there. Is that titanium down here?
Yes, yeah, custom made titanium.
Talk us through what we're looking at, because obviously this covers up a lot of the hard work and hard graft you've been doing with this car as well. So the very expensive, almost waste of money carbon hat that sits on top of it by RR Racing is possibly one of my favourite waste of money mods. We've all got them. I don't care what anyone says. There's always a mod that was an absolute waste of money, but you love it. Underneath it, it's a 5 litre V8, which has been, as far as ISFs go, heavily worked on. Someone did say to me it's probably one of the most modified in the country now, which is probably, it's pretty easy going really, because there aren't many of them kicking about. But so it's got PPE headers on there, so stainless steel headers on underneath into a Hayward & Scott stainless exhaust system with titanium intake, blitz filter, and then a remote tune from the Dominican Republic, of all places. Really? So at 5 AM I was there on a laptop with the guys at I'm going to remember, Reflash Tuning. Couldn't remember the name there. No, you're right.
And we did five runs up the A14, basically just parked up, reflashed the ECU and got it singing incredibly well. I changed the prop is now carbon fibre. It's got a sicky carbon fibre prop shaft. So it tied all that stuff in. Anyone that's got a Toyota, anyone that's got a Lexus knows the most restrictive area on this brand is exhaust and manifolds. When you took the old manifold off, one of the inherent problems with these cars, the cast iron manifolds started to crack and they start making a ticking sound for about 10 seconds on cold start. That don't affect any of the running, but when I took the manifolds off, which was one reason why I changed over, you could see that they've got like this little log system that makes no sense other than space saving into an exhaust system that's really, really restrictive. So just changing the headers and the exhaust system on these with a decent tune puts it from about 416 brake into the 5s.
Wow, okay.
It really does transform it. This car has transformed a great deal just from those modifications alone, which is quite good for an NA. I mean, I've been NA all my life.
Yep.
I know what to expect. You change headers on a B16, and you change the header system and exhaust system and that, and you're not looking at a lot other than the glorious sound of VTEC. Yeah, I wasn't expecting much, but yeah, they call it FBO in the States, full bolt on. So when you get an FBO Lexus, it's full bolt on, so intake, exhaust system, headers, retune.
Awesome, man.
And they do say once you drive an FBO ISF or RCF, GSF, you don't tend to go back, and yeah, I wouldn't want to go back now.
No, that is so cool. So it's running around 500 odd horsepower, is it?
Unfortunately, I was hoping for a rolling road tomorrow to actually get numbers. I'm not a numbers guy. I just want to make it fun and practical.
Yep.
But there was a group rolling road thing that was going to go on. Unfortunately, flooding and lack of interest has killed the day off, just so I could get it on a decent set of dynos, just see what it's doing.
Yep.
For nothing other than I'm not really chasing numbers on these. You don't buy a Lexus and then go chasing numbers. It's you've got a heavy old motor to try and shift around. So
sweet.
More a case of just knowing where she's got to from roughly where she began.
Yeah, definitely. It's always interesting to know, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Well, that looks absolutely beautiful. This car. Okay, Rich, walk with me here down the side of the car. We've obviously got that Maxton design kit. Rear wheels fit beautifully, and we get to this carbon fibre trunk, we're going to call it, like the rear end with the spoiler. Is this all the same kit as the front end? Was it like a pack?
No. So it's a Saban boot lid or trunk, but it's a SARD rear wing.
Okay. I've not heard of those before.
SARD Developments, they race in Japan. They've got their own team. Yeah, they've been around for a very, very long time. I didn't know much about them, to be honest. I just saw the wing. I like the fact that the wing bolts onto the carbon. Rather than drilling through.
Yeah, I've just got into the details of that as well. It's really beautiful, little like titanium looking neochrome parts on there. Yeah,
it's it was nice. I think they did them on the GT 86 or 85, whatever it is. And I really like the idea. I thought it was quite a subtle spoiler, but as far as wings go, it's incredibly expensive for what it was.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can just tell by your face.
With shipping the wing, the wing was more than the bonnet. In fact, the wing was the most expensive single piece of carbon on the car. Yeah.
Right. Okay. We'll be careful with this then this weekend.
Yeah. And anyone that knows me knows I had some problems with lacquer issues with it after about 6 months of having it, and it was hidden in the garage loft because I didn't want to see it.
Oh,
and then a company in Bedford saved the day, took it back, tinted it, did some work on it, and got it looking
mega
how I wanted it. Yeah, because it was passable, but I'm quite OCD with fitment and finish, and if you're going to put something on it, have it.
Yeah,
have it looking,
top tier,
because I do take it to shows, I take it to events, and bear in mind it's garage, I don't want it looking too tatty.
Yeah, got the more of the Maxton bits down here, and coming round to probably the most noticeable thing about the Lexus IF is the stacked exhausts.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like the one thing that you see one of these and you look for that and you go, oh, it's an ISF, like that.
So it's the thing they continued through the ISF, RCF and GSF. They kept that like trademark rear end. The good thing about this system being it's stainless steel, it's Hayward and Scott, Essex company oddly.
Oh, come on, the Essex.
Yeah, it's full stainless. It's actually real tips.
Oh, okay.
So the original ISF had the bolt-on grill ones into the, where most manufacturers have seemed to start going.
Yeah.
So yeah, the nice thing is they built the system with the same designed rear tips, so it looked the same, but they're actually real rather than
work.
Yeah, rather than falling out on.
How does it sound on a start up?
It's loud.
Can we hear it quick?
Yeah. So as it's warm already, you can't really appreciate it, which is Lexus. It is the brand. Even a straight through system, they somehow managed to make quiet.
It sounds
until
amazing.
You put your foot down. Yeah.
The lumpy V8.
Yeah.
Like
It's beautiful. Yeah.
That's really, really cool, man. That's really cool. Right, Rich, we find ourselves in the interior of the car. It is still distinctively a Lexus. It looks very similar to the rest of the Lexus Toyota range, but you've done some nice little modifications, as I can see. Once again, carbon fibre everywhere. The custom steering wheel, did you have that done, or does that come like that?
No, oddly, that was the only thing, apart from the carbon accents, which I've put in. The exhaust and the steering wheel was on the car when I initially got it.
Okay.
Bought it from a lovely chap up in Aberdeen, went up between lockdowns and collected it, and they were the only two modifications on it. Everything else was standard in its previous life. A gentleman at James Glenn Automotive in Glasgow had it. He has had, I think I recall him saying he had 3 ISFs, and Stephen said that this was one of his favourite. There's videos of him taking it around the ring, down to south of France, various track days before he then upgraded to something else. So I've got a lot of documentation from the car previously. He put Lotus seats in it and bucket seats.
Oh wow, okay.
No, he went to town on some bits that had up alloy wheels and that. But no, it was sold as close to stock as possible. I mean, I would hate to think what Lexus charged for a brand new OEM exhaust system. So
right, yeah.
It was left on there. So yeah, that was one of the only 2 changes.
Cool, man. Well,
and then I've added. Sorry, Matt. I've added carbon accents in the carbon that I like. Lexus put in, as you can see from the front, it's not really carbon. It's like a glass filled.
Yeah, I see that. It's like a crystal carbon.
Yeah,
right?
but it's not really carbon. I can't think what it is for the sake.
I've got it on this door as well. Like.
Yeah, so I can't think what they called it, but I prefer the darker carbon. Always have done. So I'm slowly transforming it. But as you can imagine, prices for these parts being custom, because they're all custom made, is it takes a while to get, and there's always a fun part to put on first before finishing off definitely. This. And if this is the only unfinished bit, I can live with that at the moment.
Yeah. Rich, we're in the car. We're finally out in the car. I wanted to ask you a few questions while we're out having a little cruise around in this absolute beast. It sounds alive. Do you know what I mean? When I say like the engine, this roaring every time you click through the gears. We'll be able to open it up in a moment. But since you've taken ownership of this, because you were a Lexus guy before this, right?
Yeah.
Are you still happy with your decision? Like, are you like really glad you chose this car?
Yeah, I love it. I go through a phase in winter when I normally take it off the road because, 500 brake, rear wheel drive, where we live, country lanes, it's just not worth it. And I go through these pangs of, should I go out and get a GT3 RS, or should I go and buy something even more dedicated to track? And I then get back in it and drive it, and I've got friends with some really nice cars, DB11s, Galados, and they said, we went to Scotland last year, and they said that I really have got to appreciate what I've got here, because it is one hell of a car.
Yeah.
And with the changes I've made to it, it's something else entirely. And for me, I don't know about many people, but when I want to upgrade a car, for me, performance has to be a big upgrade.
Yeah.
And for the price point and what I really want to spend, I don't think I can find anything at the moment that would replace it. It is that much fun. There's just a few little things I want to do to it that I want to change, really. Just to get it a little bit better, but thanks to companies in Australia such as Elate Manufacturing, they now create a supercharger kit for it.
Oh, cool. Earlier, I'm going to interrupt you. Earlier, you said you've always been NA. Would you be tempted to supercharge this?
Yes.
You would be, yeah?
Yeah, that is, at the moment it's a case of seeing how the supercharger reacts with the car. The reason why I went with Reflash for the tune in the Dominican Republic is because they're the ones that mainly got Elate's supercharger kit working.
Cool.
So there are cars now running in places like New Zealand, Australia, with some really good, some really good products on the way, for a really under-supported platform.
Yeah.
That's just not. Let's face it, Lexus they're not a sexy brand.
I think to certain people, I think maybe to the wider audience nowadays. I think to the wider audience nowadays, maybe, but I think that certainly the internet helps niches grow.
Definitely. Yeah.
Are we allowed to talk future plans? I know we've mentioned possible supercharger, but you obviously mentioned off-camera parts that you might have ordered. So what's next? What if people do come over and follow your Instagram? What are they going to be likely to see?
The next thing that's definitely on its way is a novel. I don't even know how you pronounce it. A carbon fibre bonnet, which has got a vented bonnet. These engines run quite hot. And I took the decision to change from the slab of carbon on the front to a slab with 2 large nostrils in it. They also do rear diffusers and some other bits and pieces that may find its way onto the car as and when funds allow. Semi-slicks definitely coming on board next year, the start of next year. And then supercharger, carbon bucket seats. There's stuff that's always in the pipeline. There's savings pots that are always set to one side.
Of course.
For the time where I pull the trigger. But I'm a guy that I focus on maintenance and getting the car where I need to get it. So it has a 40,000 mile service at the start of every year once I bring it out of hibernation.
Wow, okay.
Which is all fluids, filters, and I do that myself. But it's all Lexus purchased parts. And for a supercharger to go on the car, I want to have the right tyres. I've got to make sure the brake setup is where I want it. I don't want to bolt something on it and then think, I really need to stop now, or I want to start turning the car or steering it. It has to be there, and then I add the extra. But I'm loving FPO at the moment, full bolt on with a tune. It's so much fun, but there's always something, right?
Yeah, of course. That guy loves it. Look, you see that guy?
With us car guys and girls, mate, it never ends. It never ends. I got this and plan to keep it standard, but that went out the window after about 5 weeks.
It happens. I think that I can only speak on my own behalf, but if anybody follows the other channels or has followed this channel for a long time, you'll know that there's regularly been times where I'm like, I want to buy this car and I'm just going to use it, and then 3 weeks later it's slammed on wide wheels or it's like getting stripped out. And I think it's just how we are, isn't it? It's how we're tuned up in our brains to be like, I want to do this now. Like, what can I do to set mine different to everybody else's? It's just it's a nice part of modifications, and I see it as almost an art because you're making a thing yours,
I try to say to the guys at work who are all adults and don't mess around with cars. I've been asked before, why do I do it, why even bother, and I guess I wouldn't buy a house and leave the walls white. At some point I'd want to decorate it. I'd want to have my own sofa in there and my own bits, and I see cars as the same. They're a stamp on our identity. I love doing bits to this because, let's face it, a standard looking IS is probably time's going to get the better of it soon. So I don't know, it's those little tweaks, and every time you do that little modification, like the carbon prop last month, it felt like it was a brand new car all over again. Really, it felt like it had lost 200 kilos. It felt sprightly. I mean, I had the remap at the same time. But it just changes it, and I think that's why we do it.
Obviously it is quite a niche car, and there might have been people clicking on this that might be interested in buying one or have one and are like, maybe I'll be inspired by yours to do their own bits. Can you just talk me through the actual modification side of this, like how hard it is to find parts? Obviously did you say there's 190 of these in this country?
Yeah, if you go by websites like How Many Are There, and there's about 190 taxed, between 180 and 190 taxed at any one time. Because of the cost of the ISF in the UK, it's gone back up again. I mean, when I got this, it was around 19, now standard. I mean, I got a quote when I looked at potentially part X and it came Lexus Cambridge, and they were saying 25.
Wow. Okay.
So, the prices on this they make no sense, right? There's been one on eBay that's been sitting there and it's at 12k now.
Wow.
12 grand, and it looks like it's in good nick. I haven't seen it, so I can't say, but prices are like the second-hand car market in general. They're all over the place. Yeah. So, no, in terms of, is it worth owning one? It is. I love it. Most people that have them and then upgrade to something else, predominantly in America, will say that they miss their ISF or they want it back.
Yeah.
There is something about it. It's very much coming from Hondas, which is where I started my journey. There's something about the engine in this car that reminds me of VTEC. It's got, as Yamaha tuned the engine in some of the intake side of things, it has a secondary flap on the air filter side that over 3,600 revs will open up.
Okay.
So you get a lot of intake noise, and it's not the same as VTEC. As you know, the inner workings of the engine is not the same. But there is just something about this engine that reminds me of my B16A2. You know, and that kind of thing. Yeah, and from a Lexus Toyota standpoint, it's dependability. What I love about this car is I can pump so much money into it, and for enjoyment, that I'm not really worried about it imploding on itself. Ironically, I did break down 2 months ago.
Oh, did you?
But that was my own doing for fitting the carbon prop and not quite tweaking the gear leakage. And the bolts on the new prop managed to knock the gear linkage cotter pin open enough for the whole system to fall apart.
Right.
So I lost everything on the gearbox side to the gearbox, so I had nothing. So I broke down and I had to get trailered home, which is ironic for having a reliable brand.
Yeah.
But that's my own doing, and I'll take that one on the chin, as I've had to with a few people.
Brilliant.
But no, what I like about it is, you know, I can bring it here, or I can take it to a track day, or take it when I took it to Scotland, absolutely beast it, and I know it's going to get me home.
Yeah.
You know, that's the nice thing about a big V8 and a Japanese V8.
Oh yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? that tell you what, that is very very similar to what my M3 feels like when you go flat in that. Yeah, it's that deep squat on the rear. That is exciting. The sound is amazing too. Oh, I love that.
It's addictive.
Really love that.
It's addictive to anyone who's had a V engine or V8. Is there's something about it.
So as we head back to the yard, because we want to go out and get some rolling shots and stuff like that. So as we head back, I've got a couple more questions to ask you, man. That they're just for me, really. We're going to swing a right here. So yeah, these next ones are kind of just for me to know. What is your favourite part that you've fitted to the IS?
I would say the carbon prop.
Okay, cool.
The headers, changing the headers is a huge step. It's one of the big pinnacle type of mods for this.
And you did that yourself, right?
So I've done the headers and the prop myself. The headers is an expensive outlay because to ship them into the UK from PPE, you're looking at around 4 to 5 grand after taxes.
Okay.
I found mine for £1,000 while I was on holiday in California, hung over by the swimming pool. I went on eBay and did my generic go to my safe searches, and I've always put right-hand drive, PPE headers, and I know we're going away from the topic of what my favourite mod is, but the only reason why I have the two is through sheer luck. But yeah, I found some headers 7 hours away up near San Francisco, and at this point in the holiday I was on my own. Mrs had gone home with the little man.
Right.
Spoke to the guy, said, look, I'll come and pick him up. So I drove 5 hours up the road. His wife met me in Fresno, and I drove up 5 hours up the road, paid for 2 headers in a random car park over PayPal. transferred £1,000.
What a story.
Drove back home, spent 65 quid on another suitcase with BA, and shoved them in a suitcase and flew home with them.
Amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
But the reason why the prop is probably the biggest change is the one thing that's I've noticed with the ISF is that everything's quite laggy when it's standard. You put your foot on the accelerator and it's not really awake until it suddenly then goes, oh, you want me to go.
Right, yeah.
And then with the way that the OEM prop sits, it's kind of got what they call guibos in America.
Guibos.
And they're rubber sections that mount the prop to the diff and the gearbox.
Okay.
And they're like 2 inches thick. And someone explained it to me, it's something that's like prop wind. So when you put your foot down, those rubber guibos have to come under tension. And the joint in the centre of the prop shaft has to come under tension, and then you get the go. With this being a single section of carbon prop
Yep.
with aluminium pucks at the end. Everything's instant. So as soon as I got into it and started driving it, I was a bit nervous for vibration. I was waiting for something to go wrong, because as you do when you change a part that's big yourself, you're thinking there's an inevitability that you've done something wrong. And I took it out onto the dual carriageway once I'd warmed the engine up, put my foot down, and it was something else.
Yeah.
It was. I used to suffer with wheel spin in second and third, depending on conditions. Dry, but still, if the tyres weren't warm. That went oddly, and the power was a lot more linear because it was predictable. So the gearbox was telling the diff, this is what you're getting, and there was no slack and changes in tension in the prop shaft. No rubber, no join. There was nothing in there that, apart from, it's just they're basically, for want of a better word, welded together.
Cool.
With racing mounts, both transmission and engine, which is what I've got now, which is polyurethane. The whole thing's just really rigid. It does come away from being a Lexus a little bit, because you can feel it's a bit tighter, it's a bit stiffer, it's got more purpose about it, but that's kind of what I wanted. Yep. I wanted to turn the engine on, turn the car on, and know I've got a V8 under there.
A 2 litre.
Yeah, not the two. Yeah.
I have another, and my final question before we wrap up the video. What's been your worst experience with it?
My worst experience, breaking down, I think, because I knew that I messed up.
Right,
and that would be the worst experience I've had, because it's been flawless, touch wood. I'm trying to think if there's been anything that I would stand out that's made me gut wrench. I mean, I've curbed alloy wheels before, and I think everybody knows. I had a set of split rim, polished split rims on my old GS430, and I curbed them, and I can tell you what that feels like. Yeah. And I've fortunately never really had to suffer with this yet. I don't think. There's nothing that springs to mind. Breaking down is the one that gets me, because.
So your worst experience is your fault?
It's my fault, yeah. Which I'll take. I'll take that. Yeah.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for joining me down here today, and I hope you guys have enjoyed what you've seen. So that's the end of today's video. It's been amazing to go out, have a little look around, and deep dive into this beautiful Lexus, and you can definitely see why so many people that own these absolutely adore them. I want to thank Rich for coming down. Make sure you follow him over on his Instagram. He documents this whole car build, and he's also told me the future plans and other stuff that's on order, so make sure you go give him a little like and a thank you for coming down and spending the day with me down here in Essex so we can film his amazing car. If you've got something you think that would look good on the channel, hit me up on Instagram. My links are just down below in the description. I'll see you again in the next one.